The King, written by Joel Edgerton and David Michaud, who also directed the film, is a film that stands out from the other adaptations of King Henry V's life and deeds on the battlefields of France. While I do feel that the performances given in The King are very good and deserve to be praised, alongside the cinematography, the direction, and some of the historical details, I had issues with the writing in that their claim The King was a hybrid of history and Shakespeare, historical accuracy, and the non-exclusive issue to the king, that is the foreknowledge the writers give to the characters in these historical films. The way the film is shot as a whole is beautifully composed by Adam Agincourt, who is a perfect choice for cinematographer, as he had done a more natural lighting approach to a medieval Shakespearean-based film before in 2015's Macbeth. The audience feels as if they were there in the halls with King Henry IV, witnesses to the might of the trebuchets at Harfleur and the muddied chaos that was held at Agincourt in 1415. Here are some of my favorite shots from The King.
Where go you, my friend? You're crawling in the wrong direction. That wind you feel is coming from England. Scotland's that way.
These shots are accompanied by good performances from Timothee Chalamet, Sean Harris, Robert Pattinson, and Joel Edgerton. Timothee Chalamet is a star, and will continue to be one in the next couple years. In his performance as Henry V, he proves that he has the range to play past teenage cool guys and struggling drug addicts. Chalamet was able to understand the sudden change that Henry had to make, going from the young rebellious youth to the stern warrior king that Henry had to be in order to achieve his and England's goals. He plays with conviction, strength, and passion, while at the same time can also be warm, likable, and vulnerable, giving the audience a glimpse into what his performance could be like in the upcoming Dune film. Sean Harris, who plays William, Henry's Chief Justice, plays an able counselor and confidant to Chalamet's Hal, with a measured and calculated temper throughout the film. Edgerton also plays the confidant, but not just as someone who works for Henry, but as someone that sees Henry as a person that has the potential to become one of the greatest kings of England. Robert Pattinson, who in recent years has been taking serious roles, goes a little opposite to this trend, as he plays the Dauphin, perfectly foppish and overconfident, representing the French nobility's underestimation of Henry and his army. Much like the Dauphin's overconfidence, the historical accuracy in this film is found wanting in certain areas. I could say a whole lot about armor in The King, but I won't need to go too deeply here, as I'm sure the well-able collection of medieval arms and armor YouTubers will comment in the next couple days. But I will touch on it a little bit. I think while Netflix did a great job with the arms and armor in last year's release of Outlaw King, the story of Robert the Bruce, by making them localized and for the most part accurate to the period, The King, however, doesn't make this similar amount of effort. While it makes a better effort than most films, as it utilizes real mail and has some decent examples of what men-at-arms and knights wore on the battlefield, minus some ill-fitting pieces and things they had to have changed due to budgetary and equipment reasons, The King neglects and mischaracterizes the elements in which Agincourt was such a success for King Henry V, the longbow, spikes, and even Henry's own tactical brilliance. If you're familiar with medieval set films or medieval fantasy films, we always see archers shooting at an angle high up into the air to rain down arrows on their enemies. This could not be further from the truth. In the majority of the contemporary sources and physical evidence of Agincourt, as well as other battles in which the longbow was a prominent factor, we see the archers shooting straight on, as Dr. Tobias Capwell of the Wallace collection explains here.
This is a very rare example of a type of closely fitted helmet called the bassinet. Thousands of helmets like this one were almost certainly worn at Agincourt. It gave good protection to the vulnerable area around the throat, where mobility was really important. The pointed visor of this helmet was designed to deflect arrows and other weapons striking the wearer directly in the face. Another classic element in the myth of Agincourt has the English archers shooting high up into the air at long range so that they sort of drop the arrows down onto their enemies' heads from above. However, eyewitness accounts of the battle tell us that the English shooting was so thick that the French feared that the sights and the sides of their visors would be pierced, not the tops of their heads. This strongly built helmet was only vulnerable in those small areas, the sights or vision slots and breaths, the ventilation holes on the sides of the visor. A key part of the true reality of the battle, therefore, is found by interpreting the written accounts alongside the surviving objects.
Now, going on to the next easily fixed negligences, the spikes are stakes in which the archers separated themselves from the French knights. These spikes are vital to the English victory, as it protected their archers from almost immediate death and the resulting loss of the battle by the French cavalry charge. Yes, the film also does showcase the weather and its contribution to the battle, but it also neglects to show the recently plowed field it took place on, which is why the mud was so prevalent. These absences are even worse, as Netflix released an explainer video of the history behind the king, explaining why these things were massively important to the end result of the Battle of Agincourt, and one of the reasons why it is considered to be a great tactical feat by Henry and his army. By not taking care of all of the historical details, the king undermines the tactical brilliance that Henry had, and the undermining continues as Sir John Falstaff is given the credit for these tactical decisions based on a feeling in his knee.
My right knee is aching. It's only just out one rain, isn't it? Oh, save us, my liege. Please put a stop to this drivel.
Throughout The King, Sir John Falstaff is given a high seat on Henry V's war council, a role that doesn't feature in Shakespeare's Henriad, or even in the real-life events leading up to and at Agincourt. In the Henriad, Falstaff is cast off by Henry in Henry IV Part II, and the real-life Henry V was the target of a plot set up by Sir John Oldcastle, the inspiration for Falstaff, while Henry was in France. Falstaff in The King is considered by Henry to be one of the most trustworthy knights he knows, which the real Henry considered Oldcastle to be, but it seems that Egerton wanted to give a shade of PTSD to a figure of the character at the time, which is good to have, and to give more action to the character of Falstaff, but don't give him the credit for the establishment of what we later know as the eventual successful battle plans for the Battle of Agincourt, when neither the historical figure or the Shakespearean character were even there.
Doesn't matter what you see out there.
The scene in historically based films where there is a pivotal historical battle that always drives me crazy is when the writers give the historical knowledge that we in the 20th or 21st century know about that battle, and then they implement it, despite not knowing what we know. This not only doesn't give the actors the room to authentically react to their surroundings, as it is something that they aren't living truthfully within that scenario, but it also goes against how this would have happened in real life, as the historical figures didn't already know the result. You don't need to have them planning their attack out the night before. Have it on the day, when they are preparing and evaluating their surroundings in comparison to what their opposition is doing. What's worse is that it's all based on the assumption that it's going to rain through the night or the next day, because every time my knee aches, it's going to rain? You're basing battle plans on knee aches and trusting and hoping that it comes true because your friend said it? Accepting what your friend thinks may happen isn't the sign of the tactically sound and battle-experienced king that Henry V was at the time of Agincourt, and then to say later in the film that he was tricked into going to war with France. Like all historically based films, the king picks and chooses what they want to tell about the story they are retelling, and while the performances are good, the writing in which the creators wanted to separate themselves from other adaptations of Henry V's French campaign does not match the quality of those performances. From lack of details and accuracy, the undermining of its main character, and the trope of foreknowledge, the king would not have survived the French charge at Agincourt. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and check out this playlist for more film reviews and analysis.